Welcome to the TimeStrike rules overview. This will walk you through setting up and playing your first game, covering all the essentials at a high level. There's a lot of depth in the mechanics, so don't worry about bending or missing the rules here and there on your first couple playthroughs. The source system is not required to play this game, but is the preferred method and what we will be using in this demonstration. Let's start by exploring the components of TimeStrike, Shadow of Fear. 20 miniatures, these represent the units that will be moving and battling in the void. 10 character boards, these contain character information and track status conditions. 100 markers, place these on character boards and cards to track statuses. 18 dice, this includes d20s for general use and d6s called combat dice for resolving battles. 6 walls used to shape the battlefield and create cover. Source foundation and hex tokens. The foundation acts as the base layer, while hex tokens represent resources or road hexes. These serve as an alternative or complement to the source system. In this guide, we will not use the source foundation, we will use the source system. 36 tarot cards. Red borders are boss battle royale AI cards. Gray borders are boss raid AI cards. Gold borders are trials for survivor type characters. Blue borders are cheat sheets for game mechanics. 55 playing cards. This includes items, fish, artifacts, and character cards. And lastly, the rule and lore book. These are your guides to gameplay and the rich world of TimeStrike. Now let's build the map. There are 4 hex types to consider within the mechanics of TimeStrike: base hexes, resource hexes, building hexes, and liquid tiles. TimeStrike is compatible with any source theme, so simply map these hex types in the rules to the biomes you have available. The desert theme is shown in the rulebook. First are the base hexes. These act as normal land. We will use the dune hexes for these since they are the most abundant and have multi-hexers. Next, resource hexes. These are gatherable as materials during the game. We will use the obsidian and runite hexes for these. Then the building hexes. These are used as roads. You can choose to place these to start, but they can always be built during gameplay. We will use the stone road hexes for these. Lastly, the liquid tiles, which must use a tile type hex. We will use these as the water tiles. First, define the boundaries of your map by interlocking 6 source edges. For a normal game, we recommend you use 8, but you can make your maps any size or layout that you want. We will use 6 for this demo. Then, set up the base layer of the map. This cannot be altered during the game. Base hexes, building hexes, and liquid tiles can all be used in the base layer. Next, add elevation. Simply stack hexes up together to create mounds or mountains, or create pillars to place multi-hexers on top to create overhangs. Lastly, add resource hexes. Place these in stacked clusters around the map. For this map, we will place 16 resources. For a traditional map, somewhere between 20 and 30. Once the map is set up, go ahead and fill in the edges with dice, markers, any components that you need to store for the game. With the map complete, pick and set up a game mode. A game mode can always be chosen before setting up the map. The 3 game modes are Skirmish, Boss Raid, and Boss Battle Royale. Skirmish is a head-to-head battle where all characters are draftable. Boss Raid is a cooperative experience where players work together to defeat the AI known as the Lost. Boss Battle Royale is our all-out mode that will have players battling against the Lost and other players at the same time. Once a mode is decided, locate and follow the Setup Game Mode section starting on page 15. Here we'll quickly demo each mode's setup. For every mode to the side of the board, place extra walls, building hexes, resources, and if fear is in play, tentacles. Also, for each mode, designate a card area to place item, fish, and artifact cards after shuffling each deck. Now, starting the Boss Battle Royale mode, find the 2 beast cards and the 1 brute character board and place them in this area as well. These 2 types of characters will be referenced as monsters. Find the red bordered tarot cards labeled Boss Battle Royale. Search them and find the one labeled Stats and place it with the Phase 1 side upwards. Shuffle the remaining action cards and place them face down next to it. Next, decide on team sizes. We will do 2 characters per team and have 2 teams. Determine the starting player order by rolling d20s. The highest roll goes first and go clockwise around the table from there. Next, draft a team of survivor type characters in turn order using the snake draft method. The front and back of the character boards list if they are survivors. Once the draft is completed, distribute the specific trial cards to each of the survivors drafted. Next, the last player in turn order can place the boss on the map. We call the boss the Sentience. Then, in turn order, choose and place monsters on the map from the available pool of monsters. For every 2 starting survivors, there will be 1 monster placed. In this case, 2 monsters. Every odd monster must be a beast, and every even monster must be a brute. Reveal the chosen monsters in the card area and remove unused monsters. Lastly, in turn order, place teams into the void. Units on a team must be adjacent to one another and all must be adjacent to the edge of the map. Now for the boss raid. Find the 2 beast cards and the 1 brute character board and place them in this area as well. These 2 types of characters will be referenced as monsters. Find the gray bordered tarot cards labeled Boss Raid. Find the first 3 cards labeled Setup Phase 1, 2, and 3. Place them down. Discard the next 3 that say Boss Raid Gauntlet, then shuffle the remaining action cards and place them face down. Next, determine how many characters each player will control. There are no player teams in this mode because all players are on the same team, so draft survivors however you'd like. Next, place Fear on the map and follow the steps on the Setup Phase 1 AI card. Step 1 has a spawn 3 tentacles and a beast, which we can choose which one. Step 2, unlock the move and range awakening on our characters. Step 3, flip the setup card over to the stats side. Lastly, each player places their character into the void on the edge of the map. And finally, the skirmish mode. In this mode, you draft based on points. The points are listed on the back of the character boards and cards. The sentients and monsters can also be drafted. Decide a point limit for each team, like 200, 300, 400. Determine the starting player order by rolling d20s. The highest roll goes first and go clockwise around the table from there. And then draft a team in turn order using the snake draft method until players have reached their point limits. Once the draft is completed, distribute the specific trial cards to any survivors drafted. Lastly, in turn order, place teams into the void. Units on a team must be adjacent to one another and all must be adjacent to the edge of the map. Now, before we take the first turn, let's briefly review a character board. On the back of the board, at the top, you'll see a snippet of how the character plays, followed by a bit of lore. Below that is their name, class, and the cost to draft them in the skirmish mode. On the front of the board, we have a bit more information. Starting at the top left, we list the class again, their unit count, height, energy stat, and have a health bar with the health stat. On the left bottom below their portrait is their name, race, faction or origin, and their hitbox. In the center, we have a couple columns of info. First is the stats column that lists the move, range, attack, and defense base stats. In each of those stat rows, we have the corresponding awakening, buff, and curse for each stat. At the bottom are a set of unique statuses. First is exhaustion, which is used to signify if a character has already taken a turn during a round. We then have stealth and enrage, which are both buffs, and then affliction and silence, which are both curses. All buffs have a blue border, and all curses have a red border. Lastly, on the right, we have the character's skill sheet. When using a character board, fill in the open slots with markers. There are yellow, blue, red, and 1 white slot that can be filled in, but ignore boxes with a gray border that have no text or symbol inside. Also, do not place any markers in the health bar at the start. Once the map and game mode are set up, players will take turns going clockwise around the table. Each turn, a player will choose a new character to play with. At the end of the turn, players mark the played character exhausted. When all player characters are marked exhausted, that signifies the end of the round. Just note, in the boss raid mode, all players can take their turn simultaneously with characters, so you don't need to mark exhaustion. Each character has a set number of units associated with it shown at the top left of the character board or card. Unit refers to a miniature belonging to that character. Each time we reference a character, that means all the units that are part of the character. And when we reference a unit, that means just one of the miniatures from that character. During a character's turn, each unit may move using their move stat and perform actions using their energy stat. Actions can be taken at any point during movement. For example, a unit with 3 energy and 5 move could use the fish action, move 3, then mine as their second action, move 2, and attack as their third action. On a player turn, you may not use more than 4 energy or activate more than 4 units, including tamed monsters. How to move a unit. A unit's move stat is how many hexes they can move. Calculating any stat, start with the base stat, then move across the row checking the awakening, buff, curse, and an equipped artifact if there is one. A total move stat of 3 means the unit can move 3 hexes. There are two movement penalties that can alter this: swimming and climbing. If a unit is on water, they are considered swimming and must add one additional movement cost to the next hex they move to. So, if moving from this land hex to this land hex costs one move, moving from this water to the same land hex costs two. The other penalty is climbing. When moving to a hex that is above the unit's current hex, count the difference in hexes to find the movement cost. So if the hex is 3 hexes higher, it's 3 move. This means moving up just 1 hex is the same cost as moving to an equal height hex. Some characters have a movement type listed next to their move stat, either fly, swim, or burrow. A character with the swim movement type ignores the swim penalty. A character with the fly movement type ignores both the swim and climb penalties and moves in the air. A character with the burrow type ignores the climb penalty and moves underground. While moving, a unit can become engaged with other units. Engaged means that a unit is adjacent to another unit, and the height difference between the two units isn't greater than the height of the lower unit. If a unit is engaged to an enemy unit, they may not perform certain actions and cannot target units outside of that engagement. If a unit were to move out of that engagement, the enemy unit may roll a cheap shot. A cheap shot is when a player rolls a combat dice for a chance to inflict damage on a target without them defending. If a hit is rolled, the target takes 1 damage. Now let's run through the 8 actions: fish, mine, trade, climb sentience, contest, tame monster, cast ability, and attack. Each action costs a unit 1 energy to perform, and a unit cannot use the same action more than once per turn, meaning one unit can't attack twice in a turn. But if a character has multiple units, each of them could attack once. Some actions and scenarios require units to put loot into their character inventory. Loot refers to fish, items, materials, and artifacts, and can be placed on, under, or around the character board to show it is in that character's inventory. The first action, fish. Stand next to an open water hex and roll a d20. With a 10 or greater, draw 1 fish card and place it in the character's inventory. A unit engaged with an enemy unit cannot fish. Fish are used to restore health, remove curses, give buffs to characters, and tame monsters. The second action is mining. Stand next to an open resource hex, pick it up, and place it in the character's inventory. When a resource is in a player's inventory, it is called a material. A unit engaged with an enemy unit cannot mine. Materials can be used to craft and build, which we will cover later. The third action is trade. A unit can transfer 1 piece of loot from their character's inventory to any target player unit. The target unit may return 1 piece of loot back to the trading unit. The target does not need to be adjacent to the active unit or in its line of sight to trade. A unit engaged with an enemy unit cannot trade, nor can the target unit trade back if they are engaged with an enemy. The fourth action is climb sentience. Sentience refers to the big boss miniature named Fear. When engaged with the sentience, move to any open tier on the sentience. The same action is also used to get off the sentience, in which the unit would be placed on a hex adjacent to the sentience. Fifth is the contest action. When a unit is engaged to an enemy unit with an equal or lower hex size, it can contest it for position. Both units will roll a d20. If the active unit rolls higher than the target, the active unit may either push the target unit 1 hex in any direction or swap positions with that unit. Both units will add 1 to their roll for each health they have remaining and how many hexes higher they are than the opposing unit. 6 is the Tame monster action. A survivor type character can tame and control a lost monster using this action. A lost monster refers to a beast or brute that is under the control of the sentience. A survivor must be adjacent to the lost monster and have a fish in their inventory. Discard the fish and roll a d20. Roll equal to or greater than 3 times the monster's remaining health to tame the monster. So if the health of the monster is at 3, a roll of 9 or greater is needed to succeed. Failing to tame the monster results in the survivor taking damage from that monster. A beast will deal 1 damage back to the survivor, a brute will deal 2 damage back. Successfully taming will remove 2 damage markers from the monster, and it will be attached to the character that tamed it. For a tamed beast, move the character card next to its owner. A tamed beast can be played on the same turn as its owner plays and has its own stats. For a tamed brute, move the character board next to its owner and mount the survivor on top of the brute it tamed. A survivor mounted on a brute is called a behemoth. When a Behemoth character takes its turn, the movement is controlled by the Brute, but both characters still reference their own stats and can use their actions as normal. In combat, the rider of a Behemoth cannot be directly targeted, only the Brute can be targeted. When the Brute is attacked, if it blocks the entire attack, the rider does not have to defend. If the Brute even lets one damage through, the rider then must roll against the full attack. If a survivor with a tamed monster is ever defeated, the monster will return to the Lost during the boss raid and boss battle royale modes. Next, the cast ability action. Located on the right side of a character board is the skill sheet, which lists all of a character's skills. Skills fall into 4 types, indicated at the top left of each one: attack, defense, passive, and ability. To use an ability skill, use the cast ability action. Attack skills can be used during attacks. Defense skills can be used while defending. Passive skills are always in effect. The final action is attack, allowing a unit to attack a target and inflict damage that ends their movement. There are several steps to playing out combat. The active unit can choose any target to attack, but must first check if the target can be attacked. The target unit must be in range and line of sight of the attacker. To check range, look at the range stat of the attacking unit. If the range stat is 3, then the target must be within 3 hexes. To check line of sight, look at the overlaid hitbox on the character artwork. The targetable area is in light gray, and the vision point is a red dot. If a straight line can be drawn from the attacking character's vision point to the targetable area of the target, then they are in line of sight. Range and line of sight checks aren't necessary if the units are engaged. Some characters have a range of 1, which means they are a melee unit and must be engaged to attack their target. If an attack can be made, then calculate the total attack stat of the unit to decide how many combat dice the attacker will roll. Remember, when calculating any stat, start with the base stat, then move across the road checking the awakening, buff, curse, and an equipped artifact if there is one. For attacking, also add 1 attack if the base of the attacker is higher than the target. This is known as height advantage. Lastly, check to see if the unit has any attack skills that can be used to enhance the attack. Once the total attack stat is determined, pick up that many combat dice. Each combat die has 3 hit sides, 2 block sides, and 1 void side. Now roll the dice. For every hit icon rolled, these count as potential hits on the target that inflict damage. If the attacker has at least 1 hit, then the target unit must defend, and calculates their total defense stat, which is how many combat dice they roll to defend. They may also add 1 defense if their unit has the height advantage. Lastly, check to see if the unit has any defense skills to be used to enhance their defense. Once the total defense stat is determined, pick up that many combat dice and roll them. For every block icon rolled, block 1 incoming hit. On each combat die, you'll notice 1 of the hit and 1 of the block icons is gold. These are lucky hits and blocks. Certain skills require lucky hits or blocks to be rolled to trigger its effects. Also note, anytime you use a skill, if it starts with bolded text, these are requirements for the unit or the scenario the unit is in to even use the skill. At this point, check the results of the rolls against the requirement of any attack or defense skills used and apply their effects. Only 1 attack skill and defense skill can be used at a time, and skills must be declared before any dice rolls are made. This means a unit can't use multiple attack skills at once and can't declare the skill after dice rolling begins. For each hit that is not blocked, the defending unit takes 1 damage. To signify taking damage, place 1 marker in the character health bar per damage received. If the defending unit receives damage greater than or equal to its total health, it is defeated. Remove that unit from the board. If all units tied to that character are defeated, the character is defeated. All loot on that character will then transfer to the attacker unless the character was defeated by the AI or environment. And that's all the actions. Remember, you can interweave actions in between your movement. Each action costs 1 energy. You cannot mine, fish, or trade while engaged to an enemy, and after using an attack action, a unit can no longer move. When completing a turn with a character, mark the character exhausted to signify the next player may take their turn. You do not have to use all your movement or energy before ending the character's turn. In total, a character may not use more than 4 energy or activate more than 4 units on a given turn, including tamed monsters. When all player characters are exhausted, this is the end of the round. If the Lost are present at the end of the round, draw an AI action card before starting the next round. Each Lost card has many steps which should be read and completed 1 at a time. Some steps require moving the Lost, attacking players, spawning new units, or even round-long effects. In the boss battle royale and boss raid mode, the health for the monsters and mobs can be referenced from their respective cards. Fierce health is the exception, which scales based on starting survivor counts and can be referenced from the bottom of the lost stats card. When determining move, range, attack, or defense for any loss unit, all these stats are referenced from the lost stats card, meaning all loss units have the same move, range, attack, and defense. Do not reference their original cards for these stats. For the boss battle royale mode, you will use the lost stats card with the red border, and for the boss raid, use the lost stats card with the gray border, depending on what phase the boss is in. When the lost units are required to target player units based off distance from the lost unit, count the number of hexes that the lost unit would need to move to become engaged or get as close as possible to the target unit. Lost units will ignore movement penalties and cannot move through enemy units or structures, which must be considered when measuring distance. The first tiebreaker is lowest current defense, and the second is lowest current health. When fighting the lost, they don't roll dice for attacking and defending. The listed attack or defense values on the lost stats card directly determine the number of hits or blocks by the lost unit. These values remain unchanged by modifiers like height advantage. Once the AI card is completed, it signifies the start of the next round. At the start of a round, all player characters have their exhaustion reset. Continue repeating rounds until the win conditions are met. Every game's mode win condition is to defeat all enemies, both players and the lost. Now we'll cover some other mechanics that you'll encounter during the game. First, statuses. On the character board, there are indented columns with cubes that have icons and numbers under them. The three columns are awakenings, buffs, and curses. Awakenings with the gold borders are permanent stat increases. Awakenings are unlocked by completing trials in the boss battle royale and skirmish modes. Trial cards are specific and are given to each survivor character at the start of the game. As they complete each listed trial, they gain the awakening reward listed with it. They can complete trials in any order. Once a character is fully awakened, they may draw and equip an artifact card. In the boss raid mode, awakenings and artifacts will be distributed as players push the boss through its different phases. The next two columns are buffs and curses, which are depicted by the blue and red borders. These are like awakenings but aren't permanent, and some of them are unique statuses instead of just stat modifiers. Any buff or curse in a row with a stat will modify that stat and is referenced as that stat's buff or curse. For instance, in this top row here is the move buff and move curse. If a unit receives a curse or a buff, remove the marker on that curse or buff to reveal its effects. However, if a unit already has a stat buff and then receives the curse for the same stat, do not then reveal the curse. Instead, just remove the buff. Stat buffs and curses will cancel each other out. You cannot have the buff and curse active for the same stat. At the bottom of the card are unique buffs and curses. The stealth buff allows you to not be directly targeted by ranged attacks. You can still be hit by area of effect or units engaged with you. Taking damage or starting your next turn with that character will remove the stealth buff. The enrage buff will add the number of dice listed to your next combat roll, whether it be attacking or defending. After it's used, it is removed. The affliction curse will remove the amount of health listed from the character at the end of the character's turn. If it shows -1 at the end of that character's turn, they lose 1 health and add a damage marker. The silence curse will not allow a character to use any skills and disables any ongoing skills until it is removed. This can be removed at the end of the character's turn. If a character receives silence or affliction in the middle of their own turn, the silence will not be removed and the affliction will not trigger until the end of the character's next turn. Next are items. When a unit inflicts damage to a specific target using an attack or skill, they draw an item and place it in their inventory. In Boss Battle Royale and Boss Raid modes, items are obtained by inflicting damage on lost units. In Skirmish mode, items are obtained by inflicting damage on enemy player units. Items and fish are one-time use but can be used at any time during the character's turn. Some items will even state other instances when they can be used. Now onto materials. The primary purpose of gathering materials is to enable survivor-type characters to build and craft. A cheat sheet, along with details in the rulebook, outlines everything you can build and craft. Neither building nor crafting counts as an action or costs energy. They simply require one material each. First is building. Currently, the available build options are roads and walls, but units cannot build while engaged to an enemy. To build a wall, discard one material and place a wall down on an adjacent hex. The walls are meant to cover 2 hexes. To build a road, discard 1 material and take 3 road hexes. To place the road hexes, the unit must be standing on a road. So if they are not already standing on a road hex, place the first one beneath them. The remaining hexes must be built anywhere connected to the road the unit is standing on unless blocked by an enemy. Roads cannot be built on water or up overhangs. When a unit is standing on a road, they may move any distance down that road for just 1 movement cost. When any unit uses a road, they are considered walking, and normal movement and engagement rules apply. For crafting, the options are fishing nets, hang gliders, and monster traps. For the fishing net, during a fish action, a unit can discard 1 material and craft a one-time use fishing net that allows them to skip the dice roll and just draw a fish. For the monster trap, during the monster tame action, a unit can discard 1 material and craft a one-time use monster trap before rolling that will prevent the unit from taking any damage if they fail to tame the monster. Lastly, for the hang glider, if a unit is ever in a situation where they would have to roll for fall damage, they can discard 1 material to craft a hang glider and skip rolling for fall damage. A unit must roll for fall damage if it is moved voluntarily, by contest action, or by destruction, down a hex distance equal to or greater than its height. It then rolls 1 combat die and takes 1 damage if a hit is rolled. Moving down into water or voluntarily traveling down a road negates the falling status. Flying units also ignore falling when moving during their own turn. Speaking of destruction, there are several ways for hexes to be destroyed or removed from the void. Sentience movement, items, and skills may have hexes destroyed. If single hexes are destroyed, just remove them off the map. If destroyed hexes are supporting a multi-hexer, remove all the support hexes and the hexes that were supported. If hexes on the ground are to be destroyed and they are part of a multi-hexer, remove the multi-hexer and all the hexes on that multi-hexer. One last unique mechanic is called jump attacks, which is only available to melee units. For melee units not engaged with an enemy, the attack action allows a special jump attack. Leap to an adjacent hex to engage a target within line of sight and up to 2 hexes away, then resolve the attack. The landing hex must be lower than the starting hex, and the target's hex base must also be lower than the attacker's starting position. Jump attacks give the attacker height advantage and can be combined with attack skills. If jumping from excessive height, roll for fall damage as needed. Now let's skim through some specific rules about the Sentience. When units are mounted on a Sentience, they cannot be targeted by the Sentience or any other units, whether friendly or enemy, not also on the Sentience. They also cannot target any unit off the Sentience themselves. Sometimes the Sentience will trigger a Sentience shake. This means that all players on the Sentience will be knocked off and must pick an adjacent hex to land on, which is decided in turn order. When moving a Sentience, their center hex must be placed on an open hex. Any uneven land under the Sentience is flattened. If there are obstacles like walls or trees under the Sentience's outer hexes, they are destroyed. If there are units there, they will get pushed back. Lastly, for the Sentience, each Sentience will have some sort of unique mob they control, spawning, moving, and attacking in the void. For Fear, it's Fear's tentacles. Each of these tentacles has 1 health, and if they are destroyed, Fear will take 1 damage. Lastly, the different game modes have slight modifications in the rules, so be sure to check the end of the rulebook to see how each mode changes. This will affect things like turn order, cheap shots, win conditions, initiative, and more. One major change in the boss battle royale mode is something called the myth system. If a team gets knocked out before the Sentience is defeated, that team becomes the myth. The myth controls the lost to exact their revenge on the remaining teams. The myth's goal is to destroy the remaining teams before the lost are defeated. And that's it. TimeStrike has an evolving rule set, so feel free to reach out to us with questions or recommendations about the game. We have left 2 blank pages in the back to write your own rules and ideas, and also a quick reference guide on the back of the rulebook. Find more TimeStrike and other games at sourcetavern.com or on our Discord. This is Salpy, wishing you Godspeed in the void.